Hey guys, Garrett back for Sableye the Mind Sculptor with another Commander deck. This deck centralizes around one of my new favorite cards, not only in Commander but also just in general, Baral, Chief of Compliance. I have 60 cards to go through, not including lands, so I'll be moving kind of fast through the deck. If I miss anything, please forgive me. It was an attempt to make this video short enough to be watchable. This deck is not one I would play in normal Commander. I would usually play a deck like this in Partners or Monarch or something like that. If you want to use it, my card advantage in ramp is not enough to keep up with three other players. You're just going to have to play sparingly with your counter spells and just try and protect your win cons, not try to just counter everything you see, even if that is in flavor for Brawl. So, anyway, let's talk about the themes of the deck. We're running 22 counter spells, so it is a permission deck, basically. But we're also running a little bit of Wizard's Tribal, mostly things that can function fine with just Brawl and the other Wizard. And then lastly, we have a whole bunch of things to make instance better, so that I can counter better, faster, stronger, or whatever. And that's most of how I plan to win. So starting with my creatures, we have the Wizard Tribal guys, Azami, Lady of Scrolls, which might seem weird to have her and only one other wizard, but tapping down two or three guys that aren't going to go into combat and then drawing two or three cards out of it is really good. Next, we got Patron Wizard, who will just tax everything by 2 or 3 unless they promise not to use their bombs on you, of course. And then Sigil Tracer, who works well with just itself in Brawl. Riptide Director, again, 2 to 3 cards end of turn if you don't need to counter, is just really good. Docent of Perfection. This is mostly for making my instants and sorceries better, but I put it here because I guess it's also Wizard's Tribal. And it works out really, really well if you have a Patron Wizard as well. Vidalcan Aether Mage is just to search for other wizards, but it can be used for wizards which aren't Wizard's Tribal ones. So if it seems like it's a little bit low on targets right now, trust me, there are guys later in the deck that he can also search for. Moving on to the rest of my creatures, these ones are the ones that make the instance better. First we have Talron the Sky Summoner, who is actually a great alternate commander to this deck. I've used him like that a couple of times, and the deck still works just fine. Little bit of the stuff is still expensive, but he's a lot of fun to play at the helm. Lunar Mystic, which will make your instants and sorceries cost as much as they would have normally, even if you have a Brawl, but will draw you a card, so that's a pretty good trade-off. Disciple of the Ring, which is my only graveyard card, so it's very good at taxing their non-creatures into just complete oblivion. Lull Mage Mentor, which you're probably never going to use the second part of his ability, but the first part of his ability is good enough for him to be included in the deck in the first place. Thing in the Ice, which, I mean, this is probably where this goes with the other things that make my instants and sorceries better, and honestly I don't think I need to explain why this card is good. Nibless of Frost, which is a great threat to have. You can threaten to tap people's stuff down without actually doing it. And then he's also just amazing at stopping one guy, but it's very hard for him to stop 2 or 3 guys. And then lastly we have Guile, which is one of our huge win cons, and I mean, when you counter spells and get them, that is just one of the most amazing things. Moving on to the rest of my creatures, these ones are the ones without any theme at all. We have Academy Elite, which is questionable, but if someone else is being degenerate, it can be really good. Galenolendra Archmage, who counters 2 spells, or, sits out on the board and at least threatens to counter spells. And it's just a very good value for 4 mana. Urtai Wizard Adept, again, more of a threat than something you'll actually end up using. And Steel Hellkite, which I thought was too good of a win con not to put in this deck. So that's the last of my creatures. I'm now going to move on to my 22 counter spells. And I'm not actually going to go through all of these. I'm just going to ask you guys to believe me that I'm running 22 counter spells, and you can go look at them. And you'll be thinking they're a little bit expensive, but remember Brawl reasons. And yeah, I just didn't want to go through all of these. It would be getting very tedious by the end. Now for the rest of the things that make my spells better. This is all the non-creature things I have that make my spells better. We've got first Sphinx Bone Wand, which I'm kind of divided about cutting it, but it does get very good if you can just keep it resolved for a long time. Metallurgic Summonings, which is probably one of the best cards in the deck. It turns around any game that you're losing. You just gotta love this card. It's very, very strong in so many decks. Eyes of the Watcher. This is another card that is pretty high on my possible cuts, but it does do a lot of filtering. Trail of Evidence, which will get you a card when you counter spells. I mean, that's all that you need to know. But then the fact that the cost is delayed is even better. It's just a very, very strong card. And then lastly, we have Jace's Sanctum, which honestly I think is just better than you think, and you have to give it a chance if you don't think it's going to work out. So now for the board wipes of blue, the mass bounce spells, because you do need to protect yourself. You're running a permission deck. So starting with Aether Spouts, this is actually one of my favorite cards just to get a lot of card advantage, because they might swing in with an entire horde, and you're just like, okay, put all that on the bottom of your library. Or if they're swinging on you because you're about to kill them, put it all on top of your library, and now you can't draw out of the situation. Very good card. Aetherize, maybe a little bit worse, a little bit less expensive, and it can lead to the same amount of card advantage if they end up having to go to discards at the end of their turn. I mean, don't underestimate Aetherize. Coastal Breach, which is amazing with enough players. Inundate, which is cool because it doesn't bounce your own guys. And Engulf the Shore because it's instant, speed, and cheap. I could see taking this one out for something that's a little bit more like a washout. I don't know. But whatever. And then we just got some miscellaneous cards that didn't fall into any of my other categories. First is Jace Architect of Thought, which is just my favorite Jason commander, and I don't really think there's much reason not to run him. Mystic Remora, because no one ever pays. Rhystic Study, because oh my god, why does no one ever pay? Mind's Eye, because I like it. Quicksilver Fountain, because it's funny. Crystal Shard, because it forces them to leave up 1 mana at all times, but it's also amazing protection for your own guys. Soul Ring, because duh. Mind Control, because I said so. And Control Magic, because I said so. I don't know, I like these cards probably more than I should. Anyway, that's the deck. I hope you guys liked it. Be ready for 3 more Kaladesh Commanders coming up soon. And peace out.